It doesn't help them satisfy their needs. And they're never going to work with me again if I keep doing that. It's simple. And
you're right.
It's a little bit of a mind change where I'm like, guys, let's put myself in the client's seat here. Why are we doing this? It's to help them because they pay us good money to do this. And if we're not even trying to find what they're looking for, we can't just make up our own idea of what they need because they're the best ones to say, this is what I need.
Exactly. I mean,
does that sound illogical?
It doesn't. Like I've talked about before. I have 4 kids, little kids, right? And what I do with one of my kids that I give an option to. So like my oldest kid, she's almost 8. I just let her pick what she wants to wear. But my 5-year-old, I say, hey, I'll say it like this. Instead of clothes, I'll say, for dinner, hey kids, here are your options tonight. You can either have mac and cheese or tacos, right? So my kids go, okay, Dad, I'm aware that these are my 2 options, and they pick one. Now, my kids rarely go, I want pizza. No, sometimes they do, and that's what a 5-year-old would do, right? Not what Sandra McCart is doing or Michael Kellerman, recruiting animal, is doing. Right? They're creating another option. Now, the parallel to this, you got tech guys listening to this podcast right now, okay? We talk about recruiting requirements, right? Recruiting requirements are very similar to software requirements in regard that they're called requirements, okay? That means these things are required for this candidate, okay? So if I come to you and I write software requirements as a user, as an applicant, say I'll go back to my Rezio creation here. As an applicant, I need the ability to search resumes in the data, or no, as a search for jobs in the database, or search jobs from the internet, from my computer, or whatever, etc. These are requirements that the application needs to have. So if I give these requirements to a software developer, and he says, you know what? I'm going to throw the requirements out the window and just do whatever the hell I want with the software. Because it sounds cool. Because it works better.
Or it's because it's easier for me.
Because I'm the best developer in the world, and I'm the smartest developer in the world, and this is what's going to happen. By the way, these guys exist. And maybe you're listening and you think you're like the best developer in the world, and you've probably gotten fired from a job because you're so stubborn, and you probably told the CTO, hey, this is how it needs to be, and the CTO probably said, you're fired. Right? Like, if you can't do what they tell you to do,
but you may even be a brilliant developer or a brilliant recruiter. That doesn't mean that your ideas are a fit or are better than what the prescribed task is. You could come up and say, you know what, this candidate may be better, or this route, taking this or doing this method would get our job done quicker. That may be the case, but there's a lot of other things that plug into that, and just because you think that doesn't mean that's the way to go. And we have whether it's a chain of command or just the proper way things are supposed to be done. And if someone asks, you could attribute it to the real life, to the real world. We were talking about this. It's, if I get pulled over by a police officer and he says, Ryan, you were speeding and you don't have proof of insurance and you don't have a current registration. So you can either pull over your car and call a friend to pick you up, or I'm taking you to jail. I can't say, I'm probably just going to get in my car and drive home.
Hey, officer, how about option C, which is F you,
I'm driving home.
Doesn't work, folks.
You can't do that. And so often, now that's an extreme situation, but tying it back to recruiting, we see, well, okay, he doesn't have 2 of the 3 things the manager asked for, but he's got 1 of them, so it should be a fit. Well, it's not, and I understand there's some hard positions to fill out there that you may only get a couple things that the manager's looking for or asking for, but we can't lead in with the guy that doesn't have any of those things. You can't start off that way. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do the client any good, and that's really what matters.
When I started my business, I was tired of being held to metrics that were required, and I understand why you need them, right? But what if you're just unable to find the right type of candidate? Like, that is a thing, right? Like, you just can't find them, but you're being held to submit 10 plus or less a week when that's not necessarily a realistic thing. So how I structure my business, and I tell people this, like, look, I want to get you everyone, right? My metrics are I either make the money or I don't make the money. I either place the person or I don't. That's my metrics, right? So what I don't have the time for is just schlepping people over all day long. I had a customer recently, actually two customers. One was a managed service partner who reached out and said, hey, I need 3 of these and 2 of these and 5 of these. Actually, it was 4 positions. He goes, there's another recruiter that's working on these as well, in addition to you. I go, okay, no problem. Cool. I think that's good for the customers because that's opening up their network to somebody else, right? The other recruiter sends, I'm not kidding, because this is what the guy told me, 20 people for 3 positions.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? And for the other position, he sends like 8. I sent altogether, I think I sent like 4 or 5 people for 4 positions. And those are because those are the people who I thought were qualified and who were a fit. But I sent that, right? The other guy floods it. He floods the market.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, some companies might say, oh, great, cool, I have a lot of paper to flip through. But a lot of people don't want that.
Right.
And I guess that's what you want as a business. Do you want people to have you do the sourcing and you do the screening, and they just want to send you the fodder they find off of the internet and say, hey, here's 20 candidates. I mean, 20 people?
That's
insane.
So I wanted to make a point, but I'll get back to it because it plays off of this. I want to talk about the reasons why we do this or recruiters do this or, why I've done it in the past. But we're having a guest next week who I'm excited about. But I was sitting in a meeting with him, and we were talking about the internal recruiter at his company. And how he likes working with vendors because, especially vendors he trusts and has worked with, because they understand what he needs and he doesn't have to go through this whole rigmarole of people. And he said, no joke, this is their recruiting process. Every resume that is submitted through their online portal, they print off, leave on his desk, and say, here are your candidates. And I said, wait, do they call them? No. Do they go through the resumes? No. They print off the resumes of people that submitted themselves, and that's what they say.
You know what I have to say
job.
to that? You know what I have to say to that?
Yeah.
That's what I have to say to that.
But we as recruiters can fall into that trap, whether it's 50 or 20 or 2. It doesn't matter if we're not providing what the client is asking for. We all fall into that same group.
And what's the value of having you if you're providing that type of quality?
There is no value, and people get tired of it, and that's why I think recruiters have a bad name. There's a lot of reasons why they have a bad name,
and we'll get into those today. We'll talk about those today.
But that's one of the reasons. I mean, so just spitballing here, why do you think we do that? Why do you think recruiters, their immediate reaction is to say, well, okay, I don't have what they're looking for, but here's this. Why does that happen?
I think this has a bigger umbrella to it, right? And we've touched about this.
Let's get real deep.
I know. I'm telling you. I think there's a pressure. So if going back to my articles, gotta love me some Dino articles on LinkedIn. I had posted something back in November 9th, 2016, called "Why Are There Bad Recruiters?" And what I have as the cover photo is Alec Baldwin with a set of steak knives in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, a 1992 production which includes acting legends such as Al Pacino, Jack Lemmon, Ed Harris. Who else?
Gosh.
The guy from the Infinity commercials, Kevin Spacey is in it. Alec Baldwin. It's like they had a Saturday Night Live skit where Alec Baldwin was like the elves.
Yeah,
he was doing the elves. And he was just like
always be cobbling.
Always be cobbling. It's amazing. It's like one of the funniest skits I've ever seen in my life. So
if you've seen this movie,
there are people in the sales industry who use this type of movie as motivation, right? You have to motivate employees. Let's just get that out of the way, right? There's different types of motivation. There's remember the Titans motivation, and where you're talking to, hey, little Timmy, we're going to get out there because we got to pick each other up and blah, 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 right? There's that. There's remember the Titans. And then there's Glengarry Glen Ross motivation and the Boiler Room motivation.
Motivate by fear.
Where you get some smooth-talking car salesman, not knocking car salespeople, but I'm using a stereotypical term here. We stereotype a lot here on this podcast. But you have these types of people who are real kind of greasy, slimy little, hey, man, weaselly, right? And they're always, hey, buddy, hey. And this exists. This exists.
You guys probably know these people.
You're thinking right now.
Deal with them every day.
You're talking about.
Please don't be thinking of Dino and myself.
Don't think of me. Look.
Hopefully.
Look, I'm not greasy. I'm not, okay? Unless I have a lot of greasy food. If I eat pizza, if I eat like a whole bar roast pizza myself, then I'm greasy, then you peg me. I'm good. No, but what you get is you get this pressure, right? And it exists, right? It's the pressure to produce something. And a lot of companies don't hold you, because they do the morning meetings, they do the stand-ups, right? The red zone boards, the stand-up board. Who do you have? You know, and so you're held accountable every day, which is good.
Right.
What do you have for this? Where is this? And sometimes those get a little bit redundant, especially if you're working on high-level positions, because you're like, well, I still have the same guy. Because some of these sales cycles on placements, I've got candidates right now. I've been doing this, the shuffle for a month or two now, just for some senior-level engineers. Well, imagine doing a stand-up every morning talking about that same senior-level engineer and where they're at in the process. That's exhausting, right? So it's this psychology of these businesses, of the staffing industry, to what they put on people, which also correlates to the high turnover rate in this business.
Right. And, you know, look, I'm a believer. I love the law of numbers in many facets. I mean, I believe in you do a certain amount of work, you're going to get a certain amount of result. I do also believe that in working smarter in how you go about things, and the better you become, the less cold calls you have to make, or the less people you have to send before you find success. So I understand there's a balance there. Mm-hmm. But some things are so metrics driven that people, for lack of a better term, they take their eye off the prize. Yeah, the prize is putting someone to work versus hitting my weekly numbers so that I don't get yelled at.
Right.
Where if you just did things a little bit differently and you were getting starts every week or multiple times a week, no one would care what your numbers were. That's
the thing. What's the golden rule or whatever? I don't know, not the golden handcuffs or anything like that. But people, once you have the starts, once you have the revenue, the spread coming in, you're in essence at a staffing agency untouchable. Doesn't matter what you do. Maybe if you go real deep on an HR level, but like, you know, you could really do or say whatever you want at one point when you're making a ton of money and no one even cares.
Right. And it takes a long time to get to the point where, and I don't think it's because you're smooth. I don't think I'm the best salesperson. I don't think I'm the best recruiter, but I work hard. I think I work smart, and you get better at your craft. And by doing that, you don't have to do things the same. But I think most people are in this mouse wheel, just trying to chase numbers down, and they forget what we're really doing this for. We're doing this to help people out and put people to work. I mean, at the end of the day.
So I was talking to a customer the other day, and he was like, "Hey man, I opened this up to this other recruiters, and they sent me 10 candidates, like 10 candidates for the senior level." I'm like, "Oh my god, wow!" He's like, "I rejected every single one of them. Wasn't even remotely close to a fit for what I was looking for." And I kind of chuckled a little bit because I'm a little prideful and a little selfish in some ways, where I want to be the best and I want to be the one who's only filling them. But he asked, "Why do you think?" He asked me, "Why do you think they just sent me 10 resumes like this that weren't even remotely close to a fit for what I was asking for?" And there's a lot of things, right? It's one, did the salesperson get as much information about the requirement as possible? Because that's important. Right? In staffing, you have the salesperson most of the time, unless you're dealing with a full desk recruiter like me. So you have the salesperson on one side, building the relationship.